typing. Okay, she's not there anymore. No, let her change it. Darrel, you ready?
I'm ready. Let's
All
go
right,
for it.
Let's do it. All right. Come on, we're late.
Hello and welcome to Talking Nine!
Today's February 23rd, 2020, Season 4, Episode 8. I'm Eric Murphy, and with me today is Dr. Darrel Ray.
Cool to be back here.
Dude, I'm so glad.
to see you.
I'm always excited to see you, man.
Well, good. Don't want to get you too excited. Okay.
Well, I got my RFR pin right
yeah.
here.
You got a free second copy of it. Because
Well, the first one cost me.
it cost him $20 the first time, and now he gets it for free.
Well, so for people who don't know you, I kind of want to. Who are you, Darrel?
Well, I am the, and that's always with a capital T, High Priest of the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. So that's number one, of course.
Okay.
And number two, I'm the founder and of Recovery from Religion, and president of the board of that and Secular Therapy Project, part of which why I'm here to talk to you. So
Yes.
And I'm a psychologist, and I'm an author of a few books.
Namely, The God Virus, Sex and God, How Religion Distorts Sexuality.
Yeah, that's the sexy part today.
Oh, dude. So for the people watching, I read these books long before I met you, and I was so excited to meet you, and you were dressed as a pirate Jedi in your full regalia.
I try to keep my image up there.
This guy's a goofball, but you know what, man? What you've put out there and what you've been able to put together for the community is just unbelievable, and I am so incredibly grateful for everything that you've done. So, dude.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I love doing it. Love helping people. That's why I do all this stuff.
Well, so we actually wanted to talk a little bit about the kind of damage that happens, right? When people are coming out of religion.
Yeah, that was one of the main reasons I'm kind of down here in South Texas doing this little tour this weekend is I wanted to talk about the damage religion causes and the name that we have for that damage. I think that's the most important thing. We know, everybody knows that there's PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and nobody doubts that. And years ago, we used to call that shell shock or battle fatigue. And it came out of war, of course, but it took years to realize that these symptoms are not just because somebody's lazy or somebody's a coward. They're symptoms because your brain has been damaged in some way, and not necessarily by a shell. Your brain is damaged because of the experience you had. And we've discovered in the last 20 or 30 years that trauma actually causes damage to the brain. It causes the brain to rewire, and it causes things like hypervigilance in people. I can't get to sleep. Sleep disorders in people. There's a lot of things we see endocrine and brain chemistry being totally upset. Dopamine, serotonins, all these kind of things start getting messed with in trauma. Well, about 10 years ago, Dr. Marlene Winnell came up with the notion of religious trauma because in her practice, she's a psychologist, as I am, she was seeing people exhibiting behaviors and symptoms that looked a lot like PTSD. It looked a lot like somebody who came back from Iraq, or a lot like somebody who'd gone through rape trauma. And she was asking, where is the common theme here? The common theme was religion. And religion, she then concluded, is the source of this trauma, and therefore she named it religious trauma. Well, that name is now taken on. It's got traction, and I want to get that out to all the world, that religion causes trauma. Not to everybody, and not every religion in every way, but let's acknowledge it and let's do something about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and I know that the first slings and arrows that are going to come our way is, oh, well, you're vilifying this. It's not even not necessarily specific practices, because there are plenty of religions that are, your church, everybody's happy, clappy, things like that. But when you institute things like, shame being a tool that you're using to ostracize and belittle people, when you're setting up these notions of, what is it to be a man? Or to be a woman, what is your job in the family? What is your place? When you have communities that are insular, things like Jehovah's Witnesses, right? Who will shun and actively say, hey, you know what? If you're not part of our religion, if you're leaving the faith, you are not allowed to see your friends or family ever again. And because there's a lot of hiring in there, it means you can lose your job, you can lose your everything. But
I think the time that we see the most religious trauma is when people leave a religion, any religion. You leave Hinduism, you leave Islam, you leave Christianity, you leave Catholicism. It doesn't matter what religion. When you leave religion, that's when the full force of the trauma hits. It doesn't mean that that is the cause of the trauma. It means that you were traumatized. You didn't even know it while you were in the religion. But you've taken the blanket off. You've taken the security off. You lose your social network. You lose your closest friends. You're shunned by your family. You may lose your job. There's lots of things start happening just because you said this religion makes no sense. If you're a Jehovah's Witness and you leave, if you're a Methodist, you leave. It doesn't matter. Once you leave, you lose that protective shell. And that's what makes people think, well, you got to stay in religion, because it really is a protective shell for many people. And maybe you should stay in whatever religion you're in if you can't, if you're going to experience massive amounts of trauma. Because most of us can see, well, when our friend leaves the religion, what happens to him? Oh, and some religions say, well, that's because the devil got him, or that's because he's going to hell, or that's because he was not a true Christian. All those things. So you start getting hammered with all this. And it really has nothing to do with that. It has to do with you've lost your support system. Humans are such incredibly social creatures. We need our support systems.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I really can't drive home enough the reality of this. So I was in a conversation actually this last week with my friend Chris. He lives in Norway. And I was showing him a video of a speech that I had done at Faithless Forum last year. And I asked people to stand up if they've been ostracized or lost family and community because when they lost their faith. And a huge portion of the room that I was speaking to stood up.
Wow.
And out of everything in that video, all the stuff that I was talking to him and showing him, he was just breathless at that. He said, I had no idea that level, like that is unheard of. I couldn't imagine that happening to a person, but the fact that it happened to so many.
Yeah, right.
And it's easy for a lot of people who are raised in secular homes and who are, living these lives that we want people to live. We don't want people to have to deal with this.
Right.
But then it creates this kind of bubble where people think, oh, that doesn't exist. It does.
Yeah.
It does. Right. There are callers who call in every single week who may seem like pose, who may seem like, no, that kind of level of zealotry doesn't exist. Yeah, it does. I know because I saw it in my own church, and I know that you know.
Oh, I see it every single day in our chat line at Recovering from Religion. I, not once a day, but dozens of times sometimes in a single day we see this kind of trauma from people.
Yeah.
A lot of complaints, and one of the biggest complaints we get is fear of hell. And so many people, whether you're Muslim or Christian, doesn't matter, fear of hell is a big, big deal among those two big religions. And people say, I've been out of religion for 10 years now. I still wake up with nightmares about fear of hell. And I'm an ex-Mormon. I'm an ex-Christian. I'm an ex-Muslim. All those groups have got this fear that and that's a sign of trauma. If you can't sleep, if you're still dealing with shit 10 years later, that's probably a sign of real trauma. And part of the reason we're talking here today is because it's really hard to get over that all by yourself. It's really hard. In fact, I would almost say it's impossible for many people. You need a second neurological system to help you. You know, it's like you go to a mechanic to get your car fixed. I can't fix my car. Well, I could, but it'd take me 10 years to train and learn how to do it, and I'd probably still screw it up. So I go to somebody who knows how to fix cars or can at least help me fix my own car if that's what I have to do. And that's kind of where you're at with trauma is you need somebody outside because trauma distorts, it seriously distorts your perception of the world. And that's why you hear of, like, soldiers who have PTSD dive underneath a table when they hear a loud noise, because that's what they were trained to do. Well, their brain is still programmed for that reaction. Very healthy, very good reaction if you're in the middle of a battle. It's the opposite kind of reaction you want in a social situation. You're at a cocktail party, somebody loud, you hear a car backfire and you dive under the table. Probably not the most appropriate. And that's what we're talking about here. You can't go to sleep because you're still afraid of hell, or you wake up with night sweats and night terrors because of some brainwashing you got about hell.
Absolutely.
To that end, can I talk about the conference a little bit?
Yeah, please, please.
To that end, we Janice Selby up in Vancouver, British Columbia, has decided this year to, for the first time, create a whole conference around religious trauma. And bring professionals, bring lay people in, bring people in that can talk intelligently about what religion does emotionally and psychologically to people. And we're calling it the Religious Trauma Conference on Religious Trauma 2020. And that's CORT2020.com. You can go on there and find out all the information. And while I know most of our listeners wouldn't be able to attend this conference, it is for both therapists, psychologists, social workers, clinicians. It's also for lay people. We'll literally have 2 tracks. One track for the therapist, one track for the lay people. Therapists will get continuing education credits for it. It's the first time we've ever sat down and talked out loud in a conference about what the fuck religion does to people, emotionally, psychologically. Yeah, thank you. That's and it is that important. We, for decades, much farther longer than that, we have been ignoring the impact of religion on people's health and emotional health, and we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to start from me and where I'm at, Secular Therapy Project and Recovering from Religion. We're going to be starting challenging that therapists start acknowledging that religion can be the root cause of trauma. Too many therapists have been taught, you've got to respect people's beliefs. You got to stay away from their religion. And we're calling bullshit on that. We're saying, no, you can still respect the person and still help them challenge the debilitating and disorienting beliefs that they've been taught by their religion. And you can do it in a kind and respectful way, but stop ignoring it. People go in with trauma syndrome, trauma symptoms, and as a result of being beaten when they were caught masturbating as a child, or being grounded for 3 weeks with minimum food and water in their bedroom because they didn't memorize their Bible verses. How many times that have to happen before the child is traumatized? And trauma happens most easily when a person's a child. So much of adult trauma can be traced right back to what we call adverse childhood experiences. And what we're trying to do is say, let's look at what religion does, and then let's help treat those people in an appropriate way. Ignoring the root is not an appropriate way to treat somebody with religious trauma.
Cheers to that. Wow.
I'm pretty passionate about this.
Yeah, rightfully so. What normally we're. I love that.
Got a good
thank
crowd, you, audience.
Right? So, as lay people here, I would not feel comfortable making that statement, which is why I'm glad that I can have you on to really talk about it, because you know what the fuck you're talking about, and I appreciate it. For those of you who want to learn more and want to kind of see more of what Darrel does, I read The God Virus. It's damn good. I read Sex and God. It's damn good. He's more than just a nice guy. He's a great author. What's that website for the conference again?
CORT2020.com. CORT2020.com.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
When is it?
It is April. I don't have the dates off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
I know. It's okay.
Yeah.
I want to go.
I would love for you to go.
I would love to go. Maybe I can put something together to try and get out there.
We think we're going to have a very good attendance there. Virtually the entire team of the Secular Therapy Project is coming, because we are we are the main sponsor. Janice Selby is the director and main thing, doing the main stuff on it. But we are the main sponsor, and Journey Free by Dr. Merlene Winnell is one of the other sponsors. So the two biggest sponsors for this conference are Psychotherapy Project and Journey Free with Dr. Marlene Winnell, the founder and the coiner of the whole term religious trauma syndrome.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
We're really excited about it. Where I'm gonna just brag.
Go.
How often in your lifetime do you get to help start something, help put something on the map that is so important? And I take a lot of pride in that. I'm going to get out here and we're going to push the shit out of this. But here's what I want. I want every therapist in the United States, I want every therapist in the world to start investigating and thinking about how many clients of mine might have religious trauma. Now, I don't mean religious trauma syndrome. There's a difference. Religious trauma just simply means they were disoriented, distorted, beliefs that are still getting in their way, but they're not traumatized by it. And then how many of my clients really are traumatized and as a result are dysfunctional in some area of their life? We did a little survey of all the Secular Therapy Project therapists, and we found that 36% of all the clients coming into our therapist offices have indications of religious trauma. Things like being beaten for having been caught masturbating, being beaten for not learning their Bible verses, being restricted for years from not interacting with people outside of their cult, or their religion, or be restricted from learning. We have so many people come to us and say, I lost my whole childhood because I was in fear of the rapture. I was in fear the whole time. Or I lost my teenage years because my parents wouldn't let me date anybody. And now I'm in my 20s and I don't know how to have a relationship with a person of the opposite sex. Or I'm gay and I really would like to have a relationship, but it's beaten in my head that I'm going to hell if I have a sexual relationship with somebody who's same-sex relationship, then I'm going to hell. And even though I'm maybe out of religion, even an atheist, I still have those dreams and those fears and all. It's insidious, and if you start digging down, you find 36% of their clients, and I'm saying that's probably a conservative, but we've got proof 36% of their clients.
Wow.
That's a lot. And that's not just people coming from the psychotherapy, that is all the clients these therapists get, 36%. Pretty big number.
That really is.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I've got to pick my jaw up off the floor just a little bit before I can respond. So I just while we're talking, while we're passionate, I just kind of want to plug the stuff that you're doing because, yes, while you can support the Atheist Community of Austin, and I will shill in a minute, I will absolutely understand if you want to support the projects that Darrel's got going on because they are incredibly important. And if you watch the show and you've seen enough, you know that we plug the shit out of things like the Secular Therapy Project and the Hotline Project. And I really, really do sincerely appreciate it. So if you get the chance and you can and you want to support it, definitely do. If you know somebody who needs therapy, point them toward the Secular Therapy Project. And if you can't, support financially, that's okay. There are other ways to do it. You can volunteer if you have the time. They will show you, they'll train you up and get you on the line. The Hotline Project itself is a peer support line.
Right.
And that's what I did before I ever did Talk Heathen.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. And
you were one of our chat line volunteers.
Yes, I was. And it's amazing to just kind of see that community gather together, and I just sincerely appreciate it. So thank you, brother.
Good. I hope people go to Court 2020 and hit the donate button to support the conference, or go to Recover from Religion and hit the donate button to support all of our other programs. So,
Cheers to that. Cheers to that. And before we dive into anything else, I did also, because this show is also supported by volunteers.
Yeah.
So after you go and support them, give us a shot if you like what we do. This show, Talk Heathen, is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit. If you like what we do and you want to support us, you can go to patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me. That's patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me. I actually thank the top 5 patrons every week.
Good.
I've got my little tab right here, and I hit refresh just in time to thank them. So if you want your name read live on the air, you can become one of our top 5 patrons at patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me. I was taking a look at I read the live chat.
Oh, okay.
I'm one of the few that do.
Okay. Well, I don't
And,
see it. Okay.
oh, no worries. I can help you pull that up later. But I had a couple people asking, well, where the hell was I? Because I was gone last week.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I actually got pretty ill. I needed to take some time. You know, it's one thing to advocate it, and it's another thing to kind of live with it day to day. But, you know, clinical depression's a thing.
Yeah.
And,
right.
you know, sometimes it turns its head. And for anybody who is having trouble or struggling, it's okay. You don't have to have reasons. Sometimes it is just your biology. Sometimes it's just your brain chemistry. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. Get help. Get help. Because it's worth sticking around for. And sometimes it is just your illness. It's not you.
Right.
It's okay. So that said, I think it's about time to move into some calls. We've been talking for a little bit. Do you have anyone you want to talk to?
Oh, I want to talk to Maddie. I know who Maddie is.
All right, let's talk to Maddie in Germany. Maddie, you're live with Eric and Darrel.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hey.
Awesome. I'm so glad to be on. Thanks for taking my call.
Absolutely. What do you want to talk about?
Well, actually, I just wanted to tell my story, or the story of my sister, much rather, and then talk a bit about religious trauma and how others around you deal with it or don't deal with it. So I grew up in a very religious home, especially until I was about 5 years old. We went to a church that I would now consider a cult. It was very heavily controlling of its members. And my mom actually came out of it being depressed and having anxiety attacks and all that stuff. And of course, my sisters and my brothers were heavily affected by that as well, because heavy restrictions were placed on them. They were told what to wear. They were told what music to listen to. And so that was kind of heavy. I didn't really, I'd say I didn't really... Sorry, I'm looking for the right words here.
It's okay.
English is my native language. I'd say that most of the doctrine wasn't really passed on to me, since we weren't in the church anymore when I was in my teens. But I still lived through the whole thing of leaving the church, and my siblings were really heavily affected by that. So a couple of months ago, actually, I started talking with my sister about that time and how she experienced being in that church and being told what to do and what to wear and how to be a woman and how to live out her sex life and all that stuff. We hadn't really talked about any of this before. In fact, my whole family had exactly one conversation about the whole thing after the fact, and they weren't really dealing with any of it. They weren't really talking about it. They didn't know how to. They didn't know how to address it. So a couple of months ago, I started talking about this with my sister, and I discovered that she really wasn't a believer anymore either, because I now consider myself an atheist. And she told me that she was afraid of telling her parents-in-law about it, and she's being looked at weirdly by her Christian friends. And she told me that she can't even listen to worship music anymore because it triggers her so much. Sometimes she can't even walk near a church because it just, just gets to her. And I would consider myself impacted by the religious upbringing that I've had, but it's not that heavy, and I'm really suspecting that my sister might be suffering from religious trauma, but no one wants to talk about it with her. She doesn't have a therapist that's educated on the topic. And when I told my other sisters that I wasn't a believer anymore, they started crying because they said we wouldn't spend eternity together. So I guess that's that. And I just wanted to bring up the fact that even if we ourselves are suffering heavily from religious trauma, I think the worst thing is that we lose connection with those we care about, and no one knows how to deal with the fact that their loved ones are suffering from a belief that they themselves are still holding.
Right. Yeah. So you're expressing what we see a lot, and that is that one of the first things that happens to people when they leave religion is they lose connections, and that's intentional. People inside the bubble are very protective of that, the boundaries around that bubble. And whether it's a Jehovah's Witnesses or just an evangelical church or Catholic or Muslim, it doesn't matter. Every one of those religions has to maintain that social isolation. And as you experienced, Maddie, leaving had consequences of losing contact. And unfortunately, your sister's kind of halfway in between. And that's why we encourage people to be sure and find somebody to help you that's informed, trauma-informed, and understands what may look like normal behavior. Oh, I don't talk to my sister anymore kind of behavior. Well, what's the root of that? Well, if it's religion, there may be more to talk about there. And Maddie and I work together, actually. She's been helping us expand Recover from Religion and the Secular Therapy Project into Germany. A year from now, we hope to actually be active in, of all places, all German-speaking countries. Isn't that cool?
That's freaking awesome.
Yeah, and Maddie is the leader.
On.
Maddie's the leader of that. She contacted us and says, I want to help you get into German-speaking. So we said, yep, we'll take you. And she's also a chatline volunteer now, too, and doing a great job. So,
Maddie, vielen Dank.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for calling in, Maddie.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that what has happened to my family and what has happened to me and my sister, it happened even though we're living in a country that many people consider secular, because when I talk to my friends about what I've lived through and how religion has impacted my life, they don't really understand. They're like, we have separation of church and state. There isn't really a problem here, but there is, and people I think don't understand quite yet how religion impacts us, even on such a personal level, even if our politics seem to be secular. Right. It's just something I wanted to get out there.
Absolutely, and I'm really glad that you called in. Thank you, Maddie.
Thanks, Maddie.
Yeah, thanks to you.
Take care.
So you and I were talking before the show started about how just even liberal religionists don't see how this could be a problem, and I see it all the time. And she's kind of illustrating that. She is in a very, very secular country. You don't think of Germany as being the place where they got and this is not a cult. She did not come out of a cult. She came out of just a fundamentalist religion, and and it's 10 times worse in the United States than it is in Texas. Yeah. And when people in the United States say, I don't see a problem, it's because you ain't looking hard enough. Yeah, it's there. It
is so hard to see, and there are so many sides to that. As y'all are talking, I'm thinking, and one of the things that I was thinking is, it's not always malice. Some people ascribe malicious intent to this kind of upbringing, but you have people who were taught this is how you raise a child, this is how you structure a community, and they're doing the best they can with the tools that they have. It just sucks that they don't have great tools. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about it. I'm like, ooh, this is something that I can bring up. And I thought, wait, hold on a second. I learned that in your book. Hey, cheers to that, right? Sorry, I just kind of had to plug the God virus there.
That was the whole reason I wrote the book, because giving you new tools for working with people.
Absolutely.
Good.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk to Jerry in Missouri. Jerry, you're live with Eric and Darrel. How are you doing?
Hey, Jerry.
I'm doing great, Eric. It's nice to hear your voice.
Oh, shucks.
Yeah, I've listened probably to 20, 25 of your episodes in the last couple weeks or so. And
I'm so sorry.
Binge watching.
Really happened to get on, so I'm sorry.
I said, I'm so sorry. Hopefully it wasn't the early stuff.
I guess I'm not catching that. Some of the early stuff.
No worries.
So it's whatever how YouTube will suggest that you have things come up. That's kind of the way it was. It come up, and I started watching it.
Well,
or
cheers
listening to it, I should say. Well, hey, both.
What did you want to talk about?
Well, Eric, part of the conversation today, while I've been sitting here on hold, is really troubling. Of course, I'm a believer. I believe in the God of the Bible, the common United States kind of Bible. I believe you haven't heard the full story of the Bible. You haven't fully understood. Like, one of the things, your guest today, and I don't think I've seen him on one of yours yet, but one of the things he brought up today was hell. That's a very traumatic thing. And guess what? You need to go back and relook at it. It's not true. what does the most famous verse in the world say? John 3:16 gives us two choices.
Well, hold on a second.
Eternal life, or are you going to look it up?
No, I know John. I know John 3:16.
I'm about to feel kind of honored there because very few people you open the book for.
No, well, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believeth in him shall not perish but have everlasting life.
Perish.
I was.
Right. What's perish mean?
Dude,
It doesn't say shall not burn forever and ever in hell.
Jerry.
It says shall not perish.
Jerry, aren't you cherry picking though?
Oh no, that's just one verse.
So what about the wailing and gnashing of teeth? Because I'm pretty sure that was Jesus.
Gnashing of teeth. Okay, so just because there's not an eternal burning hell doesn't mean there's not a fire that's going to consume at the end of the age. Okay. This fire burns you up totally. So there is still a hell, but it's hotter than normal. What people's taught. Their hell just tortures them.
Well,
okay, the hell of the Bible is. It annihilates you. It burns you up. It leaves you neither root or branch, is what it talked about in Malachi.
Here's my question for you, Jerry. How do you know that?
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, you have to go back to the Bible. And
Why?
We know that because of Hebrews 11:6 is of faith, right?
No.
That's not good enough. Just because you have faith. I've heard enough of your shows. I know where this is going to go real quick.
Sure. So why should I open the book?
Thank you for asking. The reason for opening the book, you know how, because like I said, it boils back down to faith no matter what. But here's the closest, I can give you a closest example you're going to get. Because part of me wants to believe that you really still kind of, if you could get enough evidence, you would look at it. Well, part of me is like on the fence whether or not you're just trying to destroy Christians,
Oh, so, gosh, no, I don't want to feed that persecution complex, no. But Jerry, before you do, I want to make sure that we're using the same words, that we're not talking past each other. You said it all boils down to faith. What is faith?
Well, the typical Bible definition. I believe that one in Hebrews 11.
Okay. So are you going to go with the evidence of things not seen?
Sure.
Right?
Exactly.
So what does that mean?
Yeah.
So, and I don't mean that sarcastically, right? There's a term that Daniel Dennett came up with, deepity.
Yeah,
and
right.
It's something that sounds very, very profound until you actually want to use it, and it kind of falls apart. And when it comes to that definition of faith in particular, it falls apart. It doesn't really have very much linguistic use. It doesn't have very much to offer as far as giving us definitions for things. And so far, I haven't seen a compelling argument that justifies that definition. And so let's make sure that when we're talking about faith, right, Jerry, is faith a good thing to have?
I find it to be in my life, yes.
Okay. Is that a good thing to have in general? In kind of a Kantian, prime kind of, is that something that everybody should have? Should everyone have faith?
Of course, this is a biased opinion, but yes.
Okay, so it sounds really important that we have a very clear definition of what faith is, right?
Makes sense.
Sure. So, I mean, one of the things that we could do is we could point out the abundance of other religions that are run contrary. Yeah, that have that same kind of reasoning or that same kind of answer. And kind of before we dive into that, because that is where I want to go. I don't want you to think I'm going to spring a trap on you here. Is the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that we're talking about faith in a way that we can, have a good dialogue about it. And then after that, how is faith useful to you, and how do you separate it from other religions that use that same word?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah. Of course, I know where you believe about. I may be moving back on too soon. You may have somewhere else you're wanting to say there.
No. Go right ahead, man. Okay. We're doing well. Okay. So again, and I want to make sure that I'm not, gish galloping all over you. What I'm boiling this down to right now: what is faith? Why should we have it? And how do we get there? So first off, what is faith?
I can tell you from my experience how I got there, because up until I was 40, I didn't want nothing to do with the Bible.
It actually doesn't matter.
I decided to try to read it.
Well, it doesn't matter to me how you got there. And I mean that in a very empathetic way, because when I give you a definition of any other word, I don't need to show you how I got there. I just give you the definition of the word. And so I have a competing definition for faith, and that is belief without evidence. I find that to be a very useful definition. Would you agree that faith is belief without evidence for the purposes of this conversation?
Sure. Yes, I'll go there with that.
Okay. So
I wanted to point out to you that there's a few scriptures that almost violate that rule. It's like he tells you that, hey, you can only, succeed in this as if you have faith. But then there's a few scriptures that like almost borderline pushes that faith thing. And to me, in my study of it, it's like, this is evidence. This is no longer faith almost anymore. It's like, God, what are you doing here? You're giving us so much. Is this faith anymore, or is this hard fact?
Well,
and that's what I was going to try to bring up to you. Is those.
I'm definitely happy to talk about it. I just want to make sure that we're going into it in a way that we're not going to talk over each other. Or talk past each other. You seem like a really, really nice guy, Jerry. I don't think you're going to talk over me, but talking past each other would be the problem here. So believing something without evidence, I could see that being rather problematic, couldn't you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you were talking to me 10 years ago, yeah.
Well, I'll give you an example, right? Yesterday, did you ever follow the flat earther type stuff? There was a guy.
Yeah, I looked at that. For a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a dude who was convinced, and that the Earth was flat. He built himself a steam-powered rocket so that he could shoot 5,000 feet up into the air and get a lay of the land, and try to see if he could view the curvature of the Earth. He did that about a year ago, and he repeated that stunt yesterday.
Oh no.
Yeah, he died yesterday.
Yeah, that doesn't sound too smart.
Well, it definitely, it's sad because we operate with the best tools that we have available. And we try and make sure that we're very discriminating in those tools because we want to apply the best that we can to it. And so you're saying it boils down to faith. So I don't think we need to open the book at all, because I think that if it all boils down to faith, and I think the important thing to do is show me why faith is useful, because right now, believing something without evidence gets you killed in the desert like that gentleman yesterday.
Yeah.
Well, remember how I just told you that it's like there's verses in there that almost violate his own rules? To me, it's no longer faith. And if you had the patience to listen to them, you would think it was no longer faith either. And I know that sounds crazy, using the Bible to prove the Bible, but this is a different way. I know you wrote it off a while ago when I said something about, it's very traumatic about hell. Somebody that gets taught that they're going to burn through the ceaseless ages of eternity, that's traumatic, and it's not true. I know you said that's cherry picking, but no, that's huge. You're putting trauma in people versus the truth of somebody not going to burn through the ceaseless ages of eternity. That's just one example. People have so many excuses.
Jerry, can I ask a question of clarification here? How is your use of faith different than the use of faith of Muslims who have just as much faith, or Jehovah's Witnesses who seem to me have a hell of a lot of faith, probably as much as you've got?
They do.
Yeah, so.
And I don't understand how some of them have the faith they have. These regular Christians that call in, 90% of them, how do they have so much faith not knowing the things that they should know about the Bible? And that's where I pull back down to. The Holy Bible, whatever, is the only one that has prophecy.
So
okay, I know how you feel about prophecy.
A billion other people, so far right now, what I'm hearing is a billion people have a different faith than you do, and they're just as faithful, but you seem to have some secret. And I think that's kind of what Eric's getting at. You seem to have some secret that nobody else seems to be able to understand.
Oh, no, it's not just me, okay?
Okay, very few people. What percentage?
Crazy out on the edge. There's 20 million people at least worldwide that believe like me.
Okay, well, let's give it 20 million people that've got the secret.
That's a small number.
It's very small compared to we got 7 billion people on the planet now. So
right. Yep.
Help us understand that secret, because I haven't figured out how your secret's different than the Jehovah's Witnesses or the Muslims or the Hindus or the Buddhists.
Witnesses. Well, like I said, prophecy. I know you won't open the book, but in Daniel, I know y'all have studied this somewhat, but hell.
I've read it.
Don't understand hell.
Well, I've read it cover to cover.
Yes. A person can read it and not understand it.
Do
you remember Daniel,
Jerry,
chapter 7?
Hold on a second.
Tells what the first country would be.
Jerry.
The first beast.
Jerry, well, hold on a second, man. Hold on.
Okay.
So we're going back just a little bit, right? About you said something about the Bible that got me. You were talking about prophecy. Do you think that there are any other religions that have prophecy in their holy books, or do you think that yours is the only one?
Ours is the only one.
Yeah, that is not true.
You examine it. The vagueness of it. They claim to have it, but if you actually study them, the vagueness of it.
They're all claims. They're all claims. But let's continue. You also recognize. Do you know that Jehovah's Witnesses read a version of the King James Bible?
Correct.
Okay, so
they have their own version. Actually.
Yeah, they call it the Silver Sword. But assuming that it is mostly intact, those same prophecies would be in their version of the Bible as well. So I don't know how that justifies your version of religion over theirs if your justification is something that they have as well. And
you won't unless you're willing to listen.
Well, even if it was, though, because I don't want to be dishonest here. Even if it was, let's say I granted to you that the Bible is the only book that ever had prophecies in it, right?
Okay.
How do you go about verifying a prophecy?
Searching it and looking with the history books to confirm it. Okay. The Bible says that Babylon was the first thing. Because that's the first thing I did. I read this dream. It said Nebuchadnezzar. I'm like, well, was this really a king? Because I went into the skeptical. So I had to figure out, was this Nebuchadnezzar really a king? I found out, he really lived 605 BC. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So
then the next thing it said what happened with the Medes and Persians.
Well, so the thing is I'm not arguing with you about whether or not Nebuchadnezzar lived. I'm wondering whether or not Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego got tossed into the oven. Right? I'm not arguing a lot of the
changing the subject a little.
No, because the thing
it's
is
all the same story.
Yeah, you're bringing up things that I don't like. I'm talking about the magic claims. Right? Whether or not an itinerant rabbi named Yeshua lived 2,000 years ago doesn't matter to me as much as the claims that somebody walked on water, was raised from the dead, spit in someone's eye and cured their blindness, that they cured leprosy, and that there are events where, donkeys can talk and where demons are cast into animals. I mean, there are so many supernatural claims that those are the ones that I'm pointing at. So let me give you an example. I've got the Book of Eric, right? Now, if you've seen the show, I'm sure you've seen me pull out the Book of Eric before,
yeah.
Right?
Eric.
And so one of my examples is that I say, in my book, it says 2 + 2 = 4, and I can fly like Superman. Well, I can prove to you 2 + 2 = 4, so does that necessarily mean that the other claim is true?
Like I said, if you're not willing to listen, then there's nothing that I or God can do for you.
Well, I am.
If you're not willing to rehear those prophecies. I know you read it, but just because you had one interpretation of it doesn't mean you've heard the correct one. Just like people thinking God burns people through eternity.
Well, so
God is love, but yet He's going to burn you through the ceaseless ages of eternity. Does that even make sense? Within the first 2 pages of the Bible, it tells you how He made the world and that He rested the seventh day, which is Saturday. How many people in the world listen to that? That alone, just within 2 pages, people are going to have no excuse. They should go find a church that meets on Saturday. How are they going to get past that? That clears up 99% of the confusion in religion if you just do what you read.
Jerry.
Then there's 610 commandments you're not following in the Old Testament, because Jesus said, I come to fulfill the law and I don't change a jot or a tittle of the law. And you're not following those 610. Am I correct?
Now you've got to realize which of the 610 that pointed to Him coming. Okay, so
you're going to move the goalpost again?
There's no need to sacrifice a lamb anymore.
Jerry, every time we give you some evidence of a different viewpoint, you move the goalposts. It's rather difficult. I am from Kansas City, and we won the Super Bowl this year, thankfully. But nobody moved the goalposts. We all knew what the goalposts were. We knew where the goalpost was, how far it was, how much effort it's going to take to get there.
Yeah.
And what I find about this kind of discussion is you never know where the goalpost is, because no matter what you say, you can find a different goalpost to say, oh, but that's the goalpost, not this one.
I tried to start off in one place, but you all don't want to hear that. You don't want to open the book to be able to read the verses and compare it to history books and find out that it actually happened.
So no, actually,
that's as simple as you can get it. What good is the book if you can't
Jerry,
open it up and find out what's happening in the world?
Jerry,
throw the Bible away.
I have. Jerry, I'm actually trying to go past that, right? Because what I'm doing in this argument right now is I'm not arguing the individual verses. I'm saying, okay, I'm going to grant you whatever it is that you're going to bring up out of the Bible, right? Whatever it is, we can talk about it. Whatever you want to bring up. The thing is, what tools are we applying to it? And how can we tell that it is true? And so when I brought up the book of Eric, 2 + 2 = 4, and I can fly like Superman, the reason I bring that up is because a lot of people who want to talk about prophecy will say, hey, here's a thing that points to something that is real. That's how we know that it's true, right? And I can, and the example that, long before this book, people said, Spider-Man has New York in it, and therefore the existence of New York points towards the existence of Spider-Man. And well, that doesn't necessarily follow.
You can't use the book to prove that, right? I get that. That makes logical sense, Eric. You're speaking common sense. That makes sense.
It's not common sense, actually. I wish it was, but it's not.
Should be.
I agree with you. So Jerry, where I'm going here is I want to talk about the supernatural claims, because whether or not somebody lived 2,000 years ago, I don't care. I care whether or not this hell is real and this heaven is real.
Why can't I tell you what's different?
Well, because I want to give you
your example. Just because your New York is there doesn't prove Spider-Man.
Right, because I want to give you the tools that will work to convince me. Jerry, I want to give you.
The Bible says Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome, and then you look into actual history books, and it happened that way. That knocked my socks off when I learned that. I was like, wow, why ain't these Christians teaching this? They don't understand it because they misunderstand. And that puts a whole different slant. It's a different Jesus is what they believe in.
The
Jesus I believe in and the Jesus they do are two different things. Mine doesn't burn you through the seasonal stages of eternity.
One of the things that I take a lot of pride in this show is that I meet people where they're at. I'm not going to hold you to a prior version of Jesus that I have in my head. I'm going to let you present your version so that we can talk about it and talk to each other and not past each other. So whether or not the Jesus that you believe in or the version or the way and interpretation of reading that you have, whether or not that conforms to any other way that's been brought up to me in the past, I don't care. I just want you to bring forward your evidence so we can let it stand or fall on its own merits. And so,
good method. I like that.
And I also want to give you the tools, and I want you to have clear guidelines. I want those goalposts to be set well,
right?
So we can look at it and go, hey, here's the tools that I'm using, Jerry, and I want to determine whether or not I'm using good tools, and how can we determine whether or not your claim is true, because that's what we're trying to work on, right? So. Sure. I gave you these examples because you were giving me an example out of the Bible that said Nebuchadnezzar was a real king. Okay, I don't care whether or not Nebuchadnezzar was a king. I care about whether or not 3 brothers were thrown into a fire and walked out unscathed.
Well, there's no way to prove that. But the story about Nebuchadnezzar's dream, there is a way to prove it. Do you remember his dream?
So
Chapter 2, do you remember his dream?
Jerry, Again,
it tells the future. It's a timeline hidden in the Bible.
Jerry,
it tells the countries that would come afterward. How that's nice of God to tell us what countries is going to come after before it actually happens.
Jerry,
what more can he do?
You could do a lot of things. Stop giving kids cancer would be one of them. But let's go back to the Bible.
There's nothing to him. He has the power to resurrect. He has the power to heal. That's merely a bruised knee to him.
Yeah, well, why don't you go to a children's oncology ward and tell that to the kids or their families?
Now, I know short term how that looks. I know how it sounds.
Yeah, so let's go back to where we have the goalposts set. Are you saying that the miracle claim in that story is unprovable?
How could you prove it?
I agree. Are there any miracle claims in the Bible that can be true? Are there any miracle claims in the Bible that could be proven?
See, that's why I'm trying to remember. I told you at the very beginning of this. It almost violates his rules. The closest you're going to come, these miracle ones about the Jonah and the swallowing the man and all that stuff. Well, you're not going to. If you just use those, you're never going to get there.
So,
because that's not something that's provable. Well, but this is the closest. I'm telling you, no matter who calls in, they're not going to get you any closer than this.
Okay, so what?
What?
Let me grant to you that let's say the historical claims that are entirely unremarkable are true. Let's just grant you that. So what?
Okay, I'll take it.
Okay, cool. Do we get any closer to understanding whether or not that God is real, that miracles can happen, that there's a soul, that you can go to hell, that you could go to heaven, that you should follow any of those commandments, or why you should open the dang book in the first place?
Okay, so
has any of that happened if I granted you all of the stuff I just granted you?
That gives you the first step to looking at something else. That's like Revelation chapter 17, where it talks about this whore, this woman that's in the world. You should be able to find that in the world we live in. If it's not in the world, if you can't find this whore, you have to do studying. Whore, a woman in Bible prophecy, the church.
Do you know how many women?
A bad church in our world. We should be able to find this, and it describes it. If you go through Revelation 17, it describes this woman, tells you what she's wearing, tells you how she'll rule over kings. There's no other choice than who it can be. Very clear. So
really?
When I see that coupled with the Old Testament stories, it's like, oh man, I can Google this stuff and show you a slideshow and knock your socks off. The proof that's in the Bible. It's just you're not willing to hear it.
I'm also just have different standards, and the standards that I have, I think you should have, Jerry. And those standards are ones that are important. So you're talking, we bumped the goalposts a little bit again. You're bringing up the whore of Babylon, and whether or not the whore of Babylon exists. Well, I know that accusation has been tossed around since before the Protestant Reformation. So whether or not there's a whore of Babylon, I know that people have been saying that ever since that's been written down. So no, I don't think it's specific enough, and I think it falls into the same thing that you wrote off Nostradamus or any of those other claims on, is that it is sufficiently ambiguous.
Right.
You haven't studied with the right group of people.
I think that if your God really cared.
Why do you think he's having me call you now? What do you think we're on the phone for? This is a chance to reach out to you, Eric.
He would also,
take it lightly.
If he cared, he would help communicate in a hell of a lot better way than he has to you and the 20 million people that you seem to think agree 100% with you. I want the 7 billion people to be able to understand it. Nobody seems to be able to do it except you.
The devil's, if there's a God, there's a devil. And he's much better at making people not understand.
I know. It always amazes me how powerful your devil or your Satan is. He's more powerful than any Yahweh ever was.
Hold on. You're saying there are more magical people? How do you know the devil exists?
Well, I'm saying if you grant me that there's a God.
No, why would I do that? No. That's silly.
A devil.
Okay, cool. Show me the existence of a devil.
Well, to me, with learning what I know, I look around, you see it all through the world.
No, you don't, because if you could do that, you could point to it and say, Eric, that's the devil.
Talking about, that's the devil.
Show me.
People misunderstanding God and thinking that he burns you through ceaseless ages of eternity.
You're talking about thought crimes. Jerry, this is the exact type of indoctrination and trauma that causes people to need help in the future. You're talking about thought crimes that you have absolutely zero evidence of. Zero. Why? Why do this to yourself? You seem like a great guy, Jerry. Why are you doing this? Why would you hold up something with zero evidence? Why would you point to bad things in the world and say that's the evidence of a devil? Show me the devil.
Because I've studied Daniel.
Introduce me. Get him on the phone. No, you dove into your book that says that it's true. I have a book that also says that it's true.
The fellow that died this week, did as much or more research than you probably ever done on flat Earth, and he was bound and determined to prove his theories correct.
And he proved himself all the way into the desert.
All the way
He should have just
planted in the desert.
Live and watched the live feed of the space shuttle, ISS.
I agree.
What's so hard to prove about the world being round?
I agree.
I wanted the world to be flat at one time. I looked at it too because I thought, well, for a little bit, the Bible proved it was flat, but that's not true.
The Bible says it's flat, so it proves it's flat, right?
It says there's the firmament and the dome of it, but regardless.
Yeah.
I understand what they're going.
Yeah. Another goalpost moved, but okay.
But I will say that it's interesting talking about the ISS and all of that because so far as we've been able to send astronauts, we definitely haven't seen any bearded men in the sky. So if they're invisible,
ISS, though.
if they're invisible, then they're either indistinguishable from nothing at all, or there still needs work to be done because right now, your book has not differentiated itself from mine.
You won't open it.
I will open his. Yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
You like that?
That's a great one.
How many false things have you read so far?
So far, not one false thing.
Yeah.
Dang. Yeah.
Right?
You've written the perfect book. Nobody can argue with a thing you. Unfortunately, I didn't write the perfect book because people argue with me, but they won't argue with you.
Well, it's because it's blank. But
Eric.
What's up?
Hey, Eric.
Yeah?
Would you be scared to throw a verse out and let me throw a picture to you where you could see it in the world? Throw a verse out, throw a picture out, you could see it in the world? That sounds like evidence to me. And then you could judge if it's very weighty evidence or if it's just, like most of you hear on here.
Sure. Mail at talkheathen.com. Shoot it off to me. I'll take a look and we'll correspond. Sound like a plan?
Sounds great.
All righty, man. We've been on this call for a while. I want to make sure we give other people enough time. But this has been good. I like this.
Yeah.
Thank you for
calling.
Jared.
Take care, Jerry.
Thanks for talking with me.
Yep.
Thank you. Take care, man.
Bye.
What do you think?
Well, I think we just went around in 17 circles, but okay.
Yes, but it takes a little bit of zooming out to see the circles.
Yeah, right.
And I'm hoping that this can be an exercise that somebody can look at and go, you know what, I'm not, experiencing the backfire effect and I'm not, holding my ground so that I have to, back something up without evidence. Just looking at it and going, you know what, that's actually doing this. That's doing a whole lot of this. And we should expect better from evidence of the things around us. We have somebody who's calling who wants to talk to you specifically.
Oh, okay.
And so I want to talk to Connor.
All right.
Right here in Austin, Texas. Cool. Hey, Connor.
Hey, Connor.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for calling.
Okay. So, Dr. Ray, I was just curious about the conference you were talking about at the beginning of the show. So, while I definitely support helping people get through trauma, but I was curious, how do you plan to go about doing that without turning it into a deconversion project?
Connor, that is an incredibly good question, and it's a question. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, y'all work on it. I'm going to step for just a second. I'll be right back.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And there's no easy answer to this. I'm not going to say there is. As a therapist, we're trained very highly in how to use good questioning techniques. So what a good therapist is probably going to do, Connor, is simply listen to what the client gives the therapist and ask some good questions. But what I'm encouraging therapists to learn is to take those skills they've been taught in graduate school or wherever they got their training and make sure they probe a bit around the religious edges. That's a problem I've seen in the past. We have been so taught you've got to respect the religion and the beliefs of the client that we never probe. And I see nothing wrong with probing. And the goal is not to deconvert somebody. The goal is to try to find where the trauma is and help them deal with it. A lot of people come into our offices with trauma syndromes or presenting trauma symptoms, and it's our job to help find where that needs to go. And if we just ignore religion as one of the causes, I mean, we don't ignore war, we don't ignore rape, why do we ignore religion? Does that help you?
Yeah, I was just asking you to clarify that for anyone who may not have understood it at the beginning of the show, because it sounds like it.
Yeah, it's like I mentioned, we don't ignore these other places, but for some reason we think we have to tread lightly on religion. Well, we should not be treading lightly anywhere that is causing someone trauma, whether that is rape, sex abuse, harassment, war, being a refugee because they have no control over the fact that somebody's bombing their area. All those things can cause trauma, and we don't have any hesitancy to help probe in those areas. And I'm just saying, religion is one of the other causes. As I mentioned earlier, it could be up to 36% of the people walking into a therapist's office have that kind of potential for trauma. I'm not saying they are traumatized, but the potential. So I think it's a great question. I really appreciate you asking it, because it's an important question. People should not go into a therapist, a counselor's office thinking they're going to be deconverted, because that is absolutely not our goal. Our goal is to help you live the best life you can, and trauma disrupts the best life you can live.
Damn.
All right. Well, thank you for answering.
You're very welcome, and thank you for calling with a very good question.
Yeah.
That really needed to be clarified. I'm sorry I didn't do that. Yeah.
No, that was good. Connor, can I ask you just a quick question before we go? Or before I let you go and move to the next call?
Yes.
The examples that Darrel gave of things happening now, they don't necessarily mean that they're happening in your church or your brand of religion. But could you see those kinds of traumas and those kinds of things happening in the world that could be ascribed at least to all of the religions that aren't yours?
Well, I wasn't trying to dispute his claim that it does happen in religious settings. Mm-hmm. I was just asking him to clarify how it would not become a deconversion project.
Yeah.
See, that's what I get for sticking my nose in after the conversation started.
No, he had a great question, and he was right on target.
Well,
so,
cheers to that. Connor,
thank you.
Thank you for calling in, man.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye. Wow, I am glad he clarified that. That was an important question.
Absolutely, and that was a religious caller. That was a Christian person who wanted to talk about it, and I love that.
Yeah.
Definitely. All right.
But I think your point, and that he wasn't calling about, your point is actually a point to think about. I know a lot of people can look at other religions and see the trauma they're causing, but when it comes to their own religion, they're blind to that, or could be blind to that. However, you look at Unitarians and, some New Age kind of stuff, they probably aren't causing trauma, and so I would agree there, but there's enough religions out there, and most of the people belong to one of those religions they're causing trauma. And while I can see a Jehovah's Witness family causing trauma to their children, or a Seventh-day Adventist, I'm a liberal Episcopalian, so my people don't do that, which may be true, but I still want you to look inside and make sure.
Well, and also, I mean, maybe I take a little bit more of a hard line on this, but I think that if you're propping up reasoning that doesn't really stand very well because you want to say, hey, it's true for me. It's true for you because it feels good. Whatever those cases are, you're taking those tools and you're applying them elsewhere in your life.
Oh, yeah.
And that could be doing serious damage. And we really do want to, help people, give them those tools. And it's not just because we're talking about religion, because we're talking about that framework that you use, that you apply to understand the world around you.
Right. And
you could be as happy clappy, as you want to be.
Right.
And that's great. Here's the thing. If you say, you know what, it's absolutely okay to, believe whatever this is, it creates this layer of protection around it.
Right.
And it becomes unquestionable, and it becomes, taboo. And then it becomes a place where people can couch bigotry. It becomes a place where people can, do truly heinous things that maybe we can agree with 99% of religious people are truly heinous. But the thing is, they're propping it up. And is it intentional? No. Is it? Oh, sometimes it is. But the thing is when you attack the reasoning, when you get into why they do it,
right? Yeah,
that's when we can really, kind of stamp out some of those systemic issues.
I think one of the key things, and this is Darrel speaking, not as a therapist, just as a person that values good tools, is religion, generally speaking, is not a good model of reality. So if you don't have a good model of reality and you're living by that poor model of reality, it's going to get you in trouble over and over and over again. Religions tend to say, well, it's not our fault. It's not the model that's the problem. It's the secular world is the problem, or it's the other religions are the problem. It's somebody else that's the problem.
Or they're not doing it right.
Or they're not. Yeah,
not
that's what our first caller
Christian.
said. They're not doing it right. He would never say my model is wrong. And I'm pretty damn sure, because he said some other stuff earlier, that 10 years ago he had a different view. And I'm thinking 10 years from now he'll have a different view. So which of these models that he's created throughout his own lifetime is the correct one? And he's trying to convince us that the model he has at this moment in time in his particular life is the correct model, where he even, in fact, admitted that his model 10 years ago was a different model. All I'm saying is it's a moving target, even in his own life, let alone in the religious stuff. But this notion that religion is not a reliable model of reality is really important.
It is.
And when somebody comes in to deal with their trauma, they're trying to deal with the trauma that was caused by the distortion of reality that comes out of many religions. And when you distort reality, you don't have, it's like being in a hall of mirrors and trying to navigate. It's pretty hard to do. Some people may be able to do it, but you're going to crash. You're going to crash and fall on the floor and hit some mirrors and some other things.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
All righty. You ready?
Thanks for letting me preach.
Dude, you know what? Honestly, I feel like it's right in line with myself, so I feel like I'm just kind of hearing my bubble.
Well, there you go.
But that was put better than me, so I appreciate you saying it because I like it. And, I'm just going to rip that right off of you.
Well, there you
future
go.
Episodes.
Steal away.
Will do. Will do. Let's move on, actually, and talk to John in New Hampshire. John, you're live with Eric and Darrel. How are you doing? Oh, John left. Let's see if John can call back.
Yeah.
In the meantime, let's talk to Michael in Buffalo, New York. Michael, you're live with Eric and Darrel.
Hey, what's going on, Eric and Darrel? How are you guys today?
Hey.
Doing great. Thanks for
Doing
calling.
well. It is like this nice kind of overcast day. It's perfect for like fuzzy pajamas and hot chocolate and board games, and I'm stoked. I think that's what I'm going to do after
I didn't
this.
get any of those this morning.
What?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
We are fixing that after this show.
Good. I need hot
Yes.
chocolate.
Right? Michael, sorry. What do you want to talk about?
Well, in Buffalo, it should be ice cold freezing right now, and it's a sunny spring day, so this might be evidence of global warming.
Could well be. You guys usually have 4 feet of snow. Yep.
Exactly.
But what did you want to talk about? What's up, man?
Well, I found that funny what Jerry was saying, because I was thinking of Nostradamus myself, and I'm like, well, you know what? The prophecy with Nostradamus could be true, and I could apply it to several things that's happening in Egypt and China and North Korea right now, and the end of the world's coming,
Yeah. Yeah,
and he was saying, like, how the Bible was true, and the prophecies is real and all that, and doesn't seem like it's the case.
Well, what's interesting is, that's just one of the blocks. That's just one of the bricks. But it is an easy brick to kind of nail when you start sitting down and sifting through it. Because you wouldn't accept me telling you, hey, I performed a miracle yesterday. That is totes true. It's true because I wrote it down.
Right.
That we should have.
And you had the guy next to you witness it.
Yeah, absolutely. But you can't talk to that person. I wrote down that they witnessed it in my book too. Actually, 500 people.
I can't witness it though.
Well, you're witnessing the book, aren't you, Michael? Yeah. You're a religious person calling in.
Yes, sir.
What's your take, man?
Well, I'm a big fan of Aaron Ra. Are you guys familiar with Aaron Ra?
Yeah, he's a friend.
Yeah, good friend.
Yeah, and I watch him a lot. But I can't let go of my God belief because I think it's one major thing that comes to the front of my mind right now. And humans, since the beginning of time, seem to just pray to some type of a God. It's like in our human nature to look to the skies and pray. And we don't have evidence of it, but it's just like in us, to do that and to just shut that off and be like, I don't have evidence of it. I'm just going to shut this part of me off. I just can't get myself to it yet,
Well, I don't think that should be the reason that you get there.
Right.
So what is the pareidolia? Do you know what pareidolia is?
No, I'm not familiar with that.
Is it pareidolia, Darrel?
I'm not sure.
No, it's looking into the clouds and seeing animals and shapes, right?
Right.
Seeing a face in the tall grass.
Seeing the face in the tall grass.
Interesting. Yeah.
Right.
Or you wake up and you threw your jacket on the chair and you got up to go to the restroom and it scared the shit out of you, which absolutely happened to me this week. But that is something that we are just hardwired to have.
Why is that, though? Because you don't see that with
because there's an evolutionary advantage.
Reptiles.
You do. You do.
Praying to gods and stuff?
No. Hold on. So there are a lot of pieces that kind of build up there. But first, why do we see things when there aren't things? Because there's an advantage to seeing it.
Right.
And that is that you get away from predators or potential predators. You get away from potentially dangerous situations. It's the same reason why, there's an evolutionary advantage to the fucking anxiety that so many of us have, myself included.
Mm-hmm.
That those are things that we, that benefited us before we started building civilizations. So you can see that in animals, right? I've seen, a gazelle on the savannah who, just gets spooked and everything runs. And was there an actual predator? No, maybe, probably, maybe, but they go. Right? Because it's better to be safe than sorry when it comes to that. And so our brains are kind of wired that way to see intent when there isn't necessarily intent. Now, there's another piece there too, and that is that we abhor not knowing things. Mm-hmm. And it's a reason why I often say that I don't know is the most intellectually honest thing a person can do, is because we live in a culture and society where I don't know is generally not accepted. And so what did we do?
Especially with me, I want to know things, and it sucks that I don't know things.
I agree. And, as hunter-gatherer types, right, we took a look and we saw lightning and didn't know what it was. And so we gave it.
We thought it was Zeus. We thought it was a god.
Exactly, until we learned more. And as we've kind of learned more and more about natural processes, that definition of the God has changed over time. Darrel, you were saying.
Yeah, let me give two other psychological explanations.
Please.
I mean, they both build on what you talked about. First of all, I would recommend a book by Jack Wathy, a friend of mine, Jack Wathy, psychologist, The Illusion of God's Presence. It's an excellent book. Will help explain some of this. But the other piece is...
Illusion of God's Presence?
Yeah, The Illusion of God's Presence. Jack Wathy, W-A-T-H-E-Y. Good book. Good psychologist. But the second piece is, imagine you're a child in the savannah. And remember, our brains are not that far from the savannah of Africa. Less than 60,000 years, maybe even less than that for many of us. And your parents say... There is, don't go over there into those bushes because there's lions over there and they will eat you. So as a child, your survival depends upon listening to the adults in your life, your parents, your uncles, your village elders and stuff. Those same people say, don't go over into those bushes because there's demons and devils over there. Now that 3 or 4 year old child, how does it know which is true? It doesn't.
Right.
So the most important thing for that child to do is to survive. So the child's not going to go into the lion bushes, and it's not going to the demon bushes. And you know what? That child's going to believe both of them equally. And when they become adults, they're going to carry that belief structure on with them, and they're going to teach their children that belief structure. So
that's what's happening in today's day and age too. You see, why are you a Christian? Because my family is. why are you a Buddhist? Because I'm born in India and everyone's Buddhist. You see that happen in today exactly like that a lot.
Exactly. The biggest predictor of your religion is your parents' religion, at least 90%.
Exactly.
So what I'm telling you is there's a real, just as Eric said, there's a real deep biological reason for the things you're talking about. We have our brains abhor a vacuum. Our brains want to know, and so we make shit up. I mean, you look at the clouds and you make shit up. You look in the bush, you make shit up. We do this all the time. And that's why humans are so good at fooling themselves. We are incredibly good.
Yeah, like as a child, I always thought that there were ghosts in my bedroom and I would be terrified, but I never saw them, you know?
Well, and you know, misascribing something can lead to that as well. I can give you so many stories, but what pops into my head most is kind of growing up in a Latino community. For those of you who ever learned about La Llorona or the Cucuy, we're really...
The Cucuy, the boogeyman.
You know the Cucuy?
Yeah.
As an atheist, you know, it's creepy, you know, and there are ghost stories that we still share. We're just not that far off. Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of where we're at. But I want to kind of bring this around full circle.
Well, can I say something real quick, or do you want to finish?
No, go ahead. What's up?
Before I forget, like, if I were to, I think the closest thing to humans would be monkeys, right? We don't see monkeys.
No, it would be great apes.
Altars up. Yeah, great apes. We don't see them putting altars and doing burnt sacrifices and worshiping something that isn't there. It just seems to be human-like.
Well,
you know,
not quite. Everywhere you have social creatures, you have, you know, different in and out group dynamics. In fact, there were a lot of studies done with, what are the capuchin monkeys?
Yeah, right.
And this kind of innate sense of fairness,
right?
And what they view as fair, and punishing people or punishing others in the tribe that, you know, they viewed did something unfair to the group. There are a lot of those mechanics that it's just not that far off.
And remember,
I saw one where they had a mourning process about one monkey that died too. I don't know if it's the same type of monkeys, but that was compelling watching that.
Yeah, and elephants, the same thing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, elephants especially.
The mourning piece. Also, don't discount ritualistic behavior. We see ritualistic behavior in other animals, even birds sometimes. And
like how?
Going through certain procedures that are unnecessary. You know, we can actually teach a bird to go through a whole lot of rituals in order to get a reward. And humans go through all sorts of rituals. I mean, to get rain. We get people dancing all around and praying all around to get rain. We know damn good and well it doesn't get rain.
Did that.
But monkeys, great apes, we've observed ritualistic behavior in those as well.
It would be good if you wanted to research a little bit more into that. Check out, what was his first name? Skinner.
Oh, yeah, B.F. Skinner.
B.F. Skinner, yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
B.F. Skinner?
Yes.
The father of behavioral psychology.
It is amazing the kinds of things that, you know, different creatures will do if they think that that's what is going to cause the reward. And so you have birds that are spinning 2 times counterclockwise and pecking the floor 3 times because they think that's when the
Once you realize how easy it is to train animals to behave ritualistically, and then you look at yourself and you realize people who say, if I prayed Hail Mary 15 times this week, I'll get a pay raise, and then they get the pay raise, they're going to start praying.
Oh, my God, the Hail Marys worked.
Yeah, it does. We tend to say that what happens in our environment is the cause of other things that happen in our environment. And to some degree, that's true.
That could be a disorder, too, with the OCD people having to tap the door 3 times before they leave, you know?
Right. Absolutely. And you can see OCD kind of behavior happening in animals as well. Remember, our brains and our DNA are not that much different than other animals like the great apes.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. But... wow, that was actually a whole lot of educational stuff. I'm really glad you called, Michael.
Yeah, thanks. That was good.
Yeah, I'm really nervous, man, but I'm trying my best.
Hey, you did a great job.
You did awesome, for sure. We're just.
Well, I got my ammunition. I'm going to look up B.F. Skinner here, and then The Illusion of God's Presence.
Right,
And
right.
Awesome.
I'm going to look into that more to try to combat this God belief I still have.
Well,
Okay.
so
if you need to, chat in with our chat line at recoveringfromreligion.org and just have this same discussion with one of our agents. And they're not there to they're not there to go either way with you. They will give you a ton more resources than I've just given you.
And it is absolutely true. When I was training, that was one of the things that was front and center. You are not here to evangelize or proselytize. This is a place for you to be able to support people and talk to them. So that is an amazing resource. Michael, I want you to believe the things you believe for the right reasons. And education should always be front and center. And so the fact that you're wanting to educate yourself, I want you to have those tools, and I want you to come to that conclusion because it's the right conclusion, not because we said so.
Gotcha. Hey, man, I hope you feel better mentally and all that. Be strong.
I'm taking it a day at a time, my friend, but thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, you guys have a great day. God bless. No pun intended.
All right. Well, Flying Spaghetti Monster bless you, too. So there you go.
Take care.
Bye now.
You know, what's funny is we every once in a while I'll have somebody angrily say, "God bless you."
Right. Angrily, that's always interesting.
But kind of passive aggressively. Well, God bless you. Especially out here in the South.
Oh yeah.
And especially if they know that I'm an atheist. One of the things that I've seen that has had the most impact is when I look them in the eye and I say, I understand what that means to you. And that's one way of you telling me that you love me. And I appreciate that. I love you too. And the smirk drops because you gave them something human.
Yeah, right.
And I never got a sarcastic, well, God bless you from a single person I've ever done that to. Now, I know that's just my anecdotal experience.
That's pretty cool.
But
I know, I love it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You're taking that and you're going, you know what?
Just turn it on their head.
Yeah. And practicing just a little bit of charitable listening.
I think that's what Jesus meant when he said, heap burning coals of fire on their head. Do you remember that verse?
No, I don't.
No, Jesus said that, yeah. Supposedly. I don't believe there was a Jesus. So,
but it's in the book.
It's in the book. The fact is, turn it over. Don't dwell on it. Don't make it good job. I like that idea. I'm going to steal that.
Dude.
Now you stole something from me. I'll steal something from you.
I love it. Well, I mean, this is a 2,000-year-old argument. I'd be very surprised if we came up with a whole lot of new material. But before we dive into the next call, I do want to take this time to thank our patrons, because it is our patrons who keep this going, who are able to help us keep the lights on and bring awesome people like Darrel here and help us be able to support worthwhile organizations that are doing good work. If you like what we're doing and you want to support it, you can go to patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me. That's patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me. Our top 5 patrons today, we have 2 new ones who came in, actually, I think, over the course of this. So I want to thank Paul Lee, Charlotte Crum, Desert Heathen, Bethany P., and Ward Nippling. Kipling? What do we got? What do you think? Nippling?
Yeah,
I'm going to go with
looks
nipple.
right to me.
Yeah.
The K is silent, maybe.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
It's your support that keeps us going.
Thanks, that's great.
Cheers. All righty, man. You ready to dive into another call?
I am, but I just want to say I really appreciate people who support your show. I mean, yeah, we want support, but you guys support us so damn much, and we appreciate everything you guys do for us. Well, I even went so far as to give everybody a pen today because we love you guys.
Right?
And you had to pay $20 for it.
I paid serious money out of pocket when I got this, and I saw you handing them out. I was like... But, to be honest, actually, we're not done with the show, but can we just move to the crew cam for just a second?
Oh, yeah.
Because it's the people on the other side of this wall who come in here way early and they stay way late to get the podcast out, to get all the video up and going. And it's because of those people on the other side of this wall that make this happen.
Yeah, are they listening to us?
We adore them.
Hey, guys.
Can we get a crew cam, maybe?
Crew cam?
Possibly?
They're not ready. Oh, there's our folks.
Right? Check them out. Thank you. So, okay. Yeah, now I just got the warm fuzzies. Okay. You ready, man?
Yep. Go for it.
All right, let's talk to Bree in California. Bree, you're talking to Eric and Darrel. Hey.
Hi, Eric. Hi, Darrel. I don't know if you guys remember me, but I called in, I think, months ago when I was first leaving the church. And you guys are, I don't know if it was Eric or Darrel, one of you guys asked, like, are you still a Christian? And I was like, oh, yeah. So since then, I actually walked away from that. I'm not a Christian anymore.
Hey!
Good for you.
I'm not. And I like saying it because it just feels like scary, but it also feels kind of empowering because I realized that it wasn't my choice to become a Christian in the beginning. I was forced into it as a 10-year-old. I was taken to one of those hell houses.
Oh, wow.
Where they scare you. Yeah, very traumatic. Gave me like OCD. Like, and I know people say that as a joke, but it literally gave me OCD. And so I've started telling my friends. I kind of, made announcements on social media, and part of me is thinking because I do have unrelated trauma to the church, and I think that's why I gravitated so strongly because my parents were very abusive, and so the church kind of makes promises that they'll be there for you, you'll heal here, and all that kind of stuff. And I started realizing that it was damaging me even more, and that kind of that made me more, because I started recognizing the signs of abuse from my home life, which I was in denial about until I was like in my early 20s. And then it took me another 10 years to realize that same kind of stuff in a different way was coming from the church. And that kind of helped me to leave because I started getting counseling and I started studying psychology. And that was kind of the part that made me kind of pull away from the church and Christianity, is just because I realized there was something wrong, and I was always kind of gaslighted and told it's me or I believe in the devil or whatever. And then I finally figured out, no, it's the whole system. I've been to pretty much not every denomination, but a lot of denominations, and it's all the same. There's like a mixture of being super nice to people, but then really hurting them if they disagree with you. And then the thing that red pilled me with Christianity was I started watching Bart Ehrman's YouTube and reading his book on misquoting Jesus. And I've always been a researcher. And so...
Well, good for you. That's a good book, too, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. So it feels really painful to walk away from that. It's not an easy thing. And I know sometimes, Christians are ridiculed for being kind of gullible or stupid, but a lot of times people are brought up in it and they can't see a way out of it because you're in all these double binds. Like if you walk away, you're an apostate, you walk away from Christ. And then when I realized, I'm like, I don't even know if I believe in that. And currently I feel like I'm leaning more towards the agnostic side. But since I've left church, I've been, delving into all the things I'm not supposed to do. So it's kind of fun for me. So I've been like learning about paganism and all this, and kind of like, learning about things that people would consider dark, but it kind of helped me get over a lot of fear of like demons and that kind of stuff, because I feel like, this is just somebody's made up concept. There's no evidence that this is real. But I'm actually calling mostly today is because, just the social aspect of leaving the church is really hard to deal with. It's funny because the last time I called, I mentioned that there was like a letter that not a letter, an angry, like kind of a cruel message on social media someone sent me about me going to hell and all this other kind of stuff. Well, this time I actually got a 4-page handwritten letter from a quote unquote friend telling me that I'm offended and I'm, I need to come back to Jesus and all this like really crazy stuff. And it actually I was like, thank you for that, because I'm really not coming back now.
It helps you see even more of the games and the manipulation.
It does, because I consider this person a friend, and I've had kind of mixed reactions from friends. I still have quite a few Christian friends. I'm trying to get new friends that are not of the Christian faith. Mostly right now, they're kind of new age or like witches or pagans, you know, the people I'm not supposed to be friends with.
Right.
But they're nice people, so I really don't give a shit about who I'm supposed to hang out with at this point. But I realize that some of my true friends, they might be uncomfortable that I'm not a Christian anymore, but they still care about me. Mm-hmm. One of my friends even got me this like pagan magazine, and she's like, well, I support you, whatever you're interested in. And I was like, well, even if I become a heathen or an atheist? And she's like, yeah. She's like, I'm your friend.
Yeah.
So that really meant a lot.
Let me ask you a question. How do you define a true friend?
Excuse me. I'm kind of getting over a cold. I would define a true friend as someone that legitimately cares about you as a person, not about you agreeing with them.
How would you know? How would you test that? How would you know if somebody legitimately cared about you?
I think I've been testing it because I've been telling my friends I'm not a Christian, and the ones that are not good friends, they've attacked me. And the ones that are really my friends, like one of my friends, she cried. She's kind of like a mom figure, and she really does love me. Like she, you know, her children, some of her children aren't Christian, so she's not, you know,
okay.
Not like she was born yesterday. But, you know, she did get sad, but then we just don't talk about that, but we're still friends.
Okay.
So I consider that a good friend. Like,
so a true Christian is someone who demonstrates in no uncertain terms that they care for you, and then and they find a way to maintain the relationship despite differences.
Yeah.
A true friend.
A true friend. That is the opposite of many religious friends. Because many religious friends will say, I'm only a true friend with you as long as you agree with me in this one area. And it's kind of like me saying, are you a Kansas City Chiefs fan?
Am I what?
Are you a Kansas City Chiefs fan, a football team?
No, I don't know a lot about football.
You don't even know. Well, see, now I'm offended because you don't agree with me on that. Because only the true religion is the Kansas City Chiefs football team. Bad joke. It's a really bad joke, Bree. But that's how silly it often is. But that's where religions go. They say,
yeah, it's shallow.
It's very shallow, and you don't know it until you don't know it until you leave the religion. You don't know who your true friends are.
Yeah.
And I've seen this so many times. People leave their religion, and I thought they were my true friends. They helped me move into my house. They studied with me in the Bible every day, or every week, or whatever. And now I leave, and they just drop me like a hot potato.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's like this. Just it does. And I think because I do have some attachment issues because of like how my parents were very abusive and always threatened abandonment.
Yes. Okay.
It does kind of stir that up a lot. Like I got like a mental breakdown like months ago, probably around the time I called you, and part of that was the religious stuff. So when I finally I had to go on an antidepressant, and when you're in church culture, it's like, oh, you just pray or you're sinning or you're this or doing that. And it took 4 years of my therapist to convince me that this is not my fault and that it's not because I'm not spiritual enough. And it finally clicked. Like the thing that helped me, it's kind of funny, but I kind of feel like Zoloft helped me to leave because it settled my nervous system down enough where I could think straight. And then when I started thinking clearly, I was like, bye, bitches, I'm out of here.
Bree, I have heard that story amazing number of times. It just blows my mind. And
Really?
I don't recommend people get off their meds because they leave religion, but I've seen so many people say, I don't need my meds since I got because
I don't need. That's true.
Yeah.
I'm actually decreasing. I don't really need it that much. I'm like, oh, these people are making me depressed. I'm actually fine.
Yeah.
But no, I'm consulting with my doctor, so I'm not doing anything crazy.
How are you doing with your therapist, though? Are you still seeing your therapist?
My therapist, now she's more like a humanist. She does have some kind of Christian leanings, but she doesn't try to push it on me. She's just kind of like, she's like, yeah, I don't think you should go to church. And she And she actually told me, she's like, because that's part of my OCD is kind of worrying about a lot of spiritual things, like whether I'm going to hell or whatever.
Yeah.
And I have to remind myself, like, there's no evidence of that, and also, like, get myself out of my head.
Good.
And so she was saying, she's like, don't focus on, like, defining yourself like Christian, non-believer, and all these categories. She's like, focus on doing what you love, like living life. And she's like, don't sit and ruminate on that stuff constantly. Like, focus on being yourself. That's like the thing she always tells me is like, focus on finding out who you are and what you like. And I feel like I've been released from a prison. It's kind of funny because I'm like, wow, this is backside. This feels really great.
How many times have we heard that one before? I feel like I've been released from a prison. Congratulations. Yeah. Good for you.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's great. Like, I haven't even been on, like, lots of dates before, like, last year. And now I'm just, like, I'm really happy that I get to go on dates and I don't have to have these people, like, being busybodies in my romantic life. It's just, like, I get to be myself.
Good.
So I'm just like, okay, this is great.
Go out and live your best life. That's the best thing.
I'm going to live my best life, Darrel. Yeah.
Good for you.
All righty.
Okay.
Bree,
thanks for calling, Bree.
Yeah, thank you.
Good to talk to you again. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? She has time. I think I gave you a shout at one point when I was call screening. There was somebody who called who was, I think he was in his early 80s. He was failing health, and he had just recently come to the conclusion that there's probably not a God.
Right. Yeah.
And that he lived his entire life as a closeted gay man.
Yep.
And he was telling me, I lost my chance to find a partner. I lost my chance to live a full life the way that I want to. And there were so many pieces around it. He was asking me, well, because I don't believe, does that mean that I can't have religious friends? Well, some of my friends are Catholic. Yes, you can have whatever friends you want, and find people that you have things in common with and share those experiences. We don't want you to be in a bubble. We just want you to have good reasons for the things that you believe, and
don't waste your life.
Yeah.
Explore. Don't waste your life on something your parents taught you.
Yeah, I lost a lot of sleep on that call. That person just it hit my heart. I was just wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's almost like a virus that gets in people's heads.
Almost like the God Virus by Dr. Darrel Ray. Where can people buy your book, Darrel?
Oh, on Amazon.
Yeah,
of course. And
I got it as an audiobook.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you can get it on Audible. That's right.
I am going to pimp your stuff out just this entire time.
Okay.
I'm just going to shill for you.
Well, but it is like a virus, and your parents give you the virus. Just like we said in the earlier caller, the parents say there's a lion over there and there's a demon over there, and you have to accept those because your life depends on it. But you do not have to accept that there's demons over there once you discover that you can discern between lions and demons.
Yeah, exactly.
It is important to stay focused on where the lions are and not where the demons are as you get an adult. And that's what we just heard from Bree. She finally figured out that abusive family relationships look a whole lot like abusive religious relationships. And Theremin Trees, the YouTuber, has got a really good video on how the similarities between religious relationships and abusive relationships are. And I would might Google and look at that. But that's an important. What she said was profound. That abusive relationships can look a lot the same, whether they're religious or family.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we have Jeff next. Jeff in Kitchener, Canada. You're live with Eric and Darrel. How are you doing?
Not too bad. How are you doing?
Good, kid. Thanks,
Jeff. Doing all right. What did you want to talk about today?
I'm an atheist. I stopped believing probably 10 years ago or something. I'm an ex-Jehovah's Witness. Listening to the call so far, I think I might be suffering from religious trauma or something like that. I don't think I'm dealing with depression. I'm not a sad person. I'm not down. It's nothing like that. I think when I was young, as a Jehovah's Witness, I'm autistic,
okay.
or Asperger's. So I'm on what was called Asperger's, now called autism spectrum.
Right.
So growing up in that very, very cultish religion, I had retarded speech development, so I could not speak properly. So I was often called stupid or dumb. And when I did learn to speak, I was always very, very loud. And so I was seen as obnoxious. And then over time, I got labeled as this bad association. And I think that has stuck with me. And I think that was where at this point, I'm now 39 years old and haven't believed in a very long time. And I've been trying to work through this shit in my own head, trying to basically diagnose myself. And at this point, I'm kind of at a loss.
Okay. Tell me a little bit more about your religious training and your parents. What was going on when you were 5, 6, 7 years old with respect to your parents and religion?
So my mom is very, very devoutly religious.
And Jehovah's Witness?
Dad,
still Jehovah's Witness?
Jehovah's Witness, yes.
Okay.
She still is, yes. My older brother and older sister are still Jehovah's Witnesses as well.
Okay.
My dad is an atheist, but he's the one that brought my mom into the religion. So during that whole fucked up Jehovah's Witness 1975 bullshit, my dad dragged the family in during that.
Right.
By the time I was about 6 or 7, my dad had left the church and I think he was in his angry anti-theist phase of deconversion.
Right.
And so my dad's revulsion against the religion, I think, drove the kids into it more.
Yes.
Because he seemed like he was the obnoxious asshole.
Yeah.
Right?
Unfortunately, that's too common behavior. Yeah. How's your relationship?
I don't blame my dad. Go ahead.
How's your relationship with your dad now?
Oh, it's good. I get along with my dad fine. My dad's probably one of my best friends.
Okay, so
awesome.
have you been able to talk to your dad about this very thing?
A bit. My family's not really on that level. I haven't seen my brother in probably 5 years. See my sister maybe once or twice a year.
But the Jehovah's Witnesses tend to make people stop seeing relatives that aren't in the church, right?
Yeah. So I left. I never disassociated or was disfellowshipped. I was in a bad marriage that happened because having sex before marriage is bad. And then so I went through this really bad marriage that ended up in a really bad divorce, where during that we found out that I'm autistic and she was bipolar. It was a powder keg to begin with.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it was just a powder keg. And so during that, we both kind of became more of that bad association. So that reinforced my mindset that I'm a bad person, going back to being a kid who could not quite read social cues and couldn't deal with, sarcasm would piss me off because I didn't understand it. I get in fights all the time because people being sarcastic and I throw a punch. So I was this bad association kid.
Yeah.
And so now I'm in this fucked up marriage going through a divorce, and now I'm even more bad association. And so I got to that. So now I'm 10 years later, and I'm still in that mindset that I'm bad association. And even though my family's not shunning me, and even though I was never, it's almost like self-shunning.
Right.
They should be shunning me. And since my parents are still together, my mom's a Jehovah's Witness, my dad, I don't even feel comfortable visiting my parents because I feel like I don't deserve their love.
Oh, wow.
And it's weird. I'm not sad or depressed or down. That's the other thing. It's almost like this is their beliefs. This is what the cause should be. They should be doing this.
Right.
They're not. So why aren't they? I'll do it myself.
Jeff, let me throw out a couple thoughts because number one, it's commendable. You've still got a good relationship with your dad. That's an anchor. That can be a really good thing for you. Second thing is people on the spectrum, especially sounds like from your experience, use logic very well because they're usually damn intelligent. I'm guessing you score pretty high on an IQ test. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're pretty damn intelligent. I'm sure of that. Now, that's a good asset. The liability of it is it also, in most cases, I'm not saying this is true of you, but in most cases, they have more difficulty dealing with emotional internal conflicts, trying to figure out, because you don't read social cues as well, you also don't pick up your own internal cues as well. I don't know if that's necessarily true.
But trying to rationalize.
Yeah, you tend to rationalize.
I try to rationalize and I try to deconstruct. So I'm feeling this.
Right.
So what's causing this feeling? Okay, this seems like this happened because of this. And then I break it down into its subsections and I try to deconstruct the hell out of it.
You do. Okay, you just described exactly what I was trying to say. Perfect. Now, the downside of that is we're not good. I used the metaphor a little bit earlier. We're really terrible at fixing our own cars. I can't fix my own car. I have to find somebody to help me. You are a little bit more terrible at fixing your own car than the average bear. You're much better at logic than the average bear. You know, there's no perfect human. There's no perfect brain. All of us have deficiencies in some way, shape, or other. And what I'm trying to say is, in identifying your weakness, which is you probably rationalize a lot of your emotional experience, you're not going to be able to get a hold of that emotional experience and live your best life. So I don't know. Have you tried working with a good therapist with this stuff?
So I've always been skeptical of therapists because of horror stories of woo and bullshit and come to Jesus and you have to have this methodology, and I have no patience for any of that crap. And so that's been my hesitation.
Okay, well,
I know that
you and I are
therapy stuff.
You and I are absolutely on the same page with that. I have no patience for woo and stupid methodologies and Jesus. So none of that. That's why I started the Secular Therapy Project. So you can help find somebody, or you can find somebody that won't do that. But I don't care if you find anybody in our database. What I'm saying is find somebody that can help you work and give it 4 sessions, a minimum, and see how comfortable you are. Remembering that, you have to be a little patient in some ways. Not everybody thinks like you, and nobody thinks like me. I mean, we're all different. So you got to let that person have enough sample of your thinking and your behavior so they can start helping you, and 1 session doesn't do that. But do make sure and ask right up front. Tell them, I'm an atheist. I don't want any Jesus bullshit. Do you use evidence-based? Use that terminology. If they're offended by that, that's their problem, not yours. Tell them that you want somebody who uses evidence-based methodologies, and go Google what evidence-based are, and get on our website and look for people if you want. If you need something, if you need help in finding something, I've got guidelines I can give you, whether you go in our database or somebody else's. So just recognize your neurological system is your strength, and it's also your weakness. And you've described some really good strengths you've got. You've got a good relationship with your dad, and you've got, you kind of know you're not, you think you're not depressed. I'm not going to diagnose that. You might be. I don't know.
I think I might be. I'm not saying I know that I'm not depressed.
Okay.
I don't think I'm depressed. I might be. I don't know.
Can I actually throw in just a couple little pieces
here? I know
here?
we're getting short on time, probably.
No, that's okay. I felt very much like, okay, this is kind of your jam. So wanted to leave that there. But there are a couple things that I also kind of wanted to pepper in. Jeff, in my experience, it takes a long time. It can take a long time to find a good therapist. It took me over 7 months to find the therapist that I'm currently going to. It just takes hitting the bricks, going out and finding that person. So please don't be dissuaded when 2, 3, 4 therapists down the line, you're like, oh my gosh, I still haven't found. Keep looking, because it's worth it. Yeah. And even when you think things are well, the thing that we have to recognize as physical creatures in a physical world is the more we're practicing these different ways of thought, the more we're reinforcing those neural pathways. And as you get to practice them, as you get to practice rewiring that and thinking about it, the more you can catch yourself, and the more you can start to develop, positive behaviors. And that comes with practice. And sometimes it may seem like, oh my God, why am I going to my therapist to talk about this stuff? Because it's a great place that you can work on practicing that cognitive behavioral therapy. And the other thing that I really wanted to throw in, you said at the top of the call, was you said you don't feel like you deserve your parents' love. And
no, I don't, because it's I've got that imprinted on me that I'm such a fuck up that I don't deserve it. In fact, I've actually got a tattoo on my arm that says we accept the love we think we deserve. And I don't think if this is cognitive dissonance. I know that, because there's no reason why my parents would not love me, because I know they do, but I feel like they don't, or I feel like they shouldn't. And so it's not that I don't think they don't love me, it's I feel like they shouldn't love me. So I don't feel like I deserve their love.
So that kind of strikes me as a kind of imposter syndrome almost.
Oh yeah, right.
Definitely. I'm aware of that. Yeah, definitely.
So one of the things that helps me a little bit in that regard is you don't get a say in other people's feelings in the same way that other people don't get to weigh in on yours. That you are responsible for, and you can own yourself and your feelings, but you can't own them for other people. Someone can love you no matter what you do. Someone can support you and care about you no matter how much you think you deserve it, because it's not yours to take.
I don't actually have a problem with that.
So
I completely understand that. So I understand that they do love me, and I understand that it has nothing to do with me whether or not they love me. It's up to them, and it's up to their emotional system. I love them. The problem isn't that I don't think that they love me. The problem is I don't feel like they should love me. It's that whole deserving thing, and it's completely irrational. It makes no fucking sense. Again, my brain's a little bit fucked up.
No, it is. What I'm trying to say here isn't that that they do or they don't, but whether they should or they shouldn't. So someone can be loved who maybe. Could you imagine someone who doesn't deserve love? And if you could, and that person was still loved, it's not something that necessarily needs to meet all of these different tick boxes. It's not whether or not you deserve it. You're just being given it. You know what I mean?
So the problem with feeling like you don't deserve it is you've rejected, and so that's where I am. And so and this is where I'm saying my brain, I'm a little bit fucked up in the head, and I'm trying to figure out what's wrong with it, because it's at the point where I feel like I don't deserve their love, even though I know they do love me and they have reasons to love me. It's at the point where I'm almost actively rejecting their love, because I feel like I don't deserve their love, even though I know that's completely irrational, and I know that doesn't make sense. And so trying to break down why I'm doing that, and trying to deconstruct why I'm doing that.
Jeff, let me interrupt you, because you've given me a lot of clues, and I would just suggest this: it's not the why that's the problem; it's the how and the what.
Okay.
You're doing things that are causing you disturbance. You're causing upset. You're causing you not to have the relationships you want, and you can rationalize your way around this 1 billion times, and you'll never get there. So I'm going to suggest find a therapist, especially a therapist, because what you've given me some clues. A therapist that will use rational behavior therapy or cognitive behavioral therapy might. You've actually described some things that if I was your therapist, I'd say, okay, I'm gonna work with you using cognitive behavioral therapy for about 3 or 4 sessions, and we'll see how that goes. Because you've given me some clues that said that would work. So try that. When you find somebody, ask them, do you do cognitive behavioral therapy? I suspect, or I have reason to believe, that might work for me. Now, it's not going to work for everything or everyone, so your therapist might use that for 5 or 6 sessions and teach you some new skills that you're demonstrating you don't have right now. I'm listening to you, and I say, yep, you don't have that skill. Once you've gotten that skill down pat, your therapist will probably move to something else to help you. But that would be where I would actually begin that place. But again, I can't.
Yeah, that sounds good. I like that.
Good. All right.
I know I'm not a professional. We're just doing the best we can. I know that you're not his professional.
No, I'm not. I'm not his therapist.
Yeah, so we're doing our best, but yeah, at a certain point we start hitting a wall where it would be irresponsible for us to continue to try and help on that.
I completely understand that.
That said,
Yeah, no, yeah.
Holy crap! I'm glad that you're here.
Well,
because I sincerely appreciate it, brother. Jeff?
Okay,
Jeff?
no problem.
Thanks for calling in, Jeff.
Thank you,
I
man.
appreciate what you had to say.
Thanks for
and how you
talking to
said
me.
it.
Absolutely.
You're welcome.
Take care, my man.
Hey.
Yeah, I try, and I don't want to overstep into what should be done professionally. You know, we as a community, we have things that we can do. And there are a lot of people. I'm looking at the live chat and I'm seeing this outpouring of love. You know, these are people who don't know you, but are embracing you all the same. Mm-hmm. And it's weird and it's scary. And I get people who message me, you know, just for doing Talk Heathen, and they're supportive. And I'm like, why are you doing this? It's weird and funky, and it takes time. But definitely working with a professional and getting that help you need is important.
Yeah. Well, why people I'll tell you why people are supportive of you, Eric, because you give them a hell of a lot. I mean, it's reciprocity. I mean, it's basic human need to give somebody what they give them. So you're a very giving person. I know you too well.
Love you too.
You maybe give too much sometimes, though.
Aw, you're gonna make me cry. Okay.
Yeah, well, I'm just telling you the truth.
Yeah.
From my perspective, of course.
Thank you, Darrell. I'm going to clip that, and on bad days, I'm going to rewind it and listen to you saying that.
Okay.
So, Darrell, you know, this is time and time again. It's funny, you came in, you wanted to talk about religious trauma. Mm-hmm. And we saw a good amount of that today.
Oh, hell yeah, we did. And our last caller, we didn't get there, but anybody that went through Jehovah's Witness, 9 times out of 10, they are dealing with religious trauma. I didn't want to say that. I mean, we had other things to talk about, but yeah, it's not just it's Seventh-day Adventists, the same thing. Some forms of Catholicism. These religions really do cause the trauma that is lifelong if you don't get it worked on and get out. So. Yeah.
Well, I sincerely appreciate being able to talk about it and destigmatize it so that it feels more comfortable for people to be able to bring up and go, you know what? No, this is a thing. You know, we shouldn't invalidate people's recovery in the name of trying to be all-inclusive.
Right.
And it's important to say, you know what? No, this is damaging, and we should do something about it.
I don't want to say it to the listeners, if you are out there and you're seeing a therapist and you think you may have had some complications based upon your religious early childhood training, there's 2 things you can do. And the first is just tell your therapist straight up, I would like to explore religious trauma in my life. Your therapist may have never even heard the term. They will get out and do some research and find out. They're trained to do that. If they don't want to respond to that, you may have the wrong therapist. If they don't even want to explore it, they may have the wrong therapist. But most therapists will be right on it, ready to help you with that. Mm-hmm. If you need to just talk to somebody, come to us, Secular Therapy Project. Find a good therapist. If you need to just talk to somebody now, you can hit the chat line button and chat in with chat line agents. They'll talk to you and they will refer to you and they'll give you resources. So
absolutely,
don't do this alone. Don't try to do it alone.
Agreed. Darrell, before I wrap up, can we go back to the crew cam one more time? These people here, they were here when I got here, and they're going to be here long after I leave, so that they can get this out, so that they can put this out as a podcast, so that they can put it up. And we sincerely, truly, from the bottom of our hearts, appreciate it. Y'all are doing some incredible work. Darrell, dude, I am always honored to be able to have you on and hang out with you.
Thanks.
I speaking of doing good work, Darrell, you've been invaluable, and definitely you've been a role model for me. So thank you.
Good.
I'm glad you're here, and
I always love being here. So
good.
And I hope your listeners will go look up Court 2020 and look up the research on.
Yes.
what we're doing.
That's what I was going to say. I'm really going to look into that conference and see if I can make it out there, because that would be neat.
You can do a live program from there.
That would be cool. That would be cool. Last minute. Well, you know what? We'll talk.
All
We
right.
will talk.
All right.
Darrel.
Take care.
Thank you, sir. Do you remember how we end the show?
Oh, gosh darn, no, I don't.
No,
I'm
that's
sorry.
okay. That's okay.
Cue me and I'll help you if I can.
Okay. So we start off and we say, we start off by throwing up love rings. We go like this. Ready?
Okay. Oh, right. Thank you.
Yeah. That's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm magic.
So we start off by saying, if you are a non-believer.
If you're a
an
non-believer,
atheist,
okay.
this is your community. And Darrel's right. You don't have to do it alone. You're not alone. And it is okay, and it is valid to say, you know what, I've had these experiences, and it has been traumatic, but, I'm going to work toward living that best life. Mm-hmm. And wherever you're at, one of the things that last caller said that really, really got me is he kept saying, I'm fucked up in the head.
Yeah.
Dude, so neurodiversity is as broad as there are people.
Yeah.
It's not about fitting into somebody else's standard. It's not fitting into somebody else's structure. What it is finding your best life and living the best way that you can with what you have available. And that is enough. And then
your brain is the only brain you're going to get.
Damn straight.
Get out there and use it the best you know how.
And then we end it by saying, but if you do believe, we don't hate you. We just think you're wrong.
Yeah.
So
if you do believe,
if you do believe, we don't hate you. We just think you're wrong.
You're wrong. Yeah.
See you next week. I'm addicted to masturbation.
What are we doing, man? What are we doing?
No, you're done.